When Nebuchadnezzar took the throne, Babylon was already great. Yet for him, greatness had no limits. He sent his armies in all directions. Every victory added another layer to the city. The walls thickened, blue gates shone toward the sky. New temples altered even the sunlight. For the people, the hanging gardens were rumor. For him, a challenge where beauty competed with power. Babylon was just a city, but Nebuchadnezzar would turn it into an extension of his own mind. At the base of the king's constructions lay Mesopotamia's black gift, bitumen. Bitumen was solidified underground oil, sealing bricks against even the erosion of time. Bridges, temple foundations, palace walls, everything ran through this heavy-smelling material. In the heat, it melted, and as it rehardened at night, it released an invisible vapor. The windowless rooms of the king's new palace had no opening to release that vapor. As Nebuchadnezzar grew stronger, he withdrew from crowds and built a second palace inside the palace. This new area was a dark labyrinth of narrow corridors and limited light. Thick layers of bitumen filled the walls. Even the wind could not get in. The palace builders believed this would provide protection. No one had considered the breath that bitumen would trap inside. The king began waking with a metallic taste in his throat and pressure on his chest. His hands shook with invisible tremors, his breath stalling for moments. Physicians attributed it to stress and overwork. But the palace walls continued releasing bitumen's toxic breath every night. The king's mind began dissolving, slowly but certainly. He no longer recognized the bending roads on maps. Lines tangled into each other. One morning, he believed the army was in the south, though they waited at the north gate. His sense of time shattered. The boundary between night and day disappeared. The vizier sensed something was wrong as his expressions shifted unpredictably. This was only the first splinter of the coming collapse. One night, as he walked through a corridor, he heard short, clipped taps inside the walls. At first, he thought it was water. Then the sound turned rhythmic. When he pressed his ear to the wall, the rhythm became syllables. He swore he heard them say, "We see you." The servant standing beside him heard nothing. That night, when the sky cracked with thunder, he climbed to the palace roof. He mistook the thunder for a summons, shouting, "I'm here! What do you command?" Guards found him standing barefoot on the cold stones. "I hear the voice, but not its letters," he whispered. In that moment, they realized something in his mind had torn. The next day, he had 2 chairs set in the throne room, one empty, one occupied. He stood before the empty one, asking it questions. Then he sat in the occupied one and answered his own questions. Servants shivered as they heard him speak like 2 different men. He had built a court inside his own mind. He now regarded even the palace guards with suspicion. After staring into a commander's eye, he claimed the man had switched places with another.
I serve here.
He smashed the tablets, saying the cuneiform letters were moving. When the tablet cracked, he mistook the signs for insects and tried to put a shard in his mouth. Silence in the palace had turned into a creeping terror between the stones.
Come in.
One morning he summoned his barber, but recoiled upon seeing him.
I am the barber.
He stared into the mirror, unable to recognize his own face. Where did the king go? I'm not him, he muttered. When the barber stepped back, he swore someone hid behind the mirror.
I'm not him.
The palace witnessed the day the king forgot who he was.
Someone in the mirror.
One afternoon, he entered the courtyard and froze after 2 steps. For 6 hours, he didn't move. Even his breathing fell into rhythm. When guards tried to lift him, he whispered, "If I move, they'll find me."
If I move, they will
He never
find me.
said who he was hiding from. The collapse of his body signaled the earlier collapse of his mind. One night he vanished. The palace searched in panic. They found him on the rooftop, staring into the moonlight. He had his hands raised, speaking to someone unseen.
The sky answers me today.
The sky answers me tonight, but I can't read its letters,
But I can't
he
read
said.
its letters.
From that moment, his world was trapped between the sky and the walls. When physicians examined the inner palace, they found the bitumen inside still soft. The heat of the torches created a toxic breath every night. He had inhaled the fumes for years, sinking into a slow madness. This was not divine punishment, but the result of an architectural mistake. But he was in no state to accept it. He was moved to an airier lodge. The whispers were gone there, yet he still heard them. Even without shadows following him, he followed shadows. He had not escaped Babylon. Babylon lived on inside his mind. And his silent collapse would be etched into the empire's fate. Sometimes a king is destroyed not by armies, but by the poison hidden in the walls he breathes. What broke Nebuchadnezzar's mind was the silent darkness inside the palace he built himself.